A number, actually. One, whether Egyptian liberals who have sparked and led the revolt will be able to put forward parties or a political narrative that will inspire the huge mass of Egyptian middle class to subscribe to. You need to look closely at political Islam, which is much wider and deeper than the Muslim Brotherhood, and that have many ideological struggles within it, and also see what kind of narratives they will put forward in front of the society to win a sizable percentage of the next parliament. You have to look very carefully at the choices of the military establishment and how these choices will resonate with the aspirations of the middle class in Egypt. These are crucial dynamics over the next few months and years.
Okay, many thanks indeed. Tarek Osman, who's just returned from Cairo after witnessing the protest there. He's an author and Egypt expert. Let's take you back to the White House, where Felipe Calderon, the president of Mexico, has just finished speaking after the briefing with the press briefing alongside President Obama. We're waiting for the President Obama, that is, to speak again about Libya. He's now taking questions, but of course may field questions first from journalists about the bilateral meeting. No, here we go. Here's a question about Libya. Let's listen in.
Now, I know that you've admonished the press corps about impatience, and I know that the international community and the United States have taken several steps, and you've named many of those today. But I'm wondering, while this is happening, if you fear this is headed for a bloody stalemate, and more specifically, is a no-fly zone something that you're actively considering? And can you talk about what you see as your broader doctrine for military intervention in a crisis like this? The other topic is something that is quite different but does matter to millions of Americans. The National Football League is on the brink of a complete shutdown as of tonight over a labor dispute. Obviously, that's an economic issue for cities, but also something that a lot of people just care about. And I'm wondering if it's something that you'd be willing to personally intervene on, and if not, why not? President Calderon, sir, I was wondering your thoughts on an issue that's come up about potentially arming U.S. agents in Mexico. It's come up here in the U.S. Attorney General Holder has raised it as at least something that should be considered. Wondering if you will consider it and if that came up with President Obama. Thank you both.
All right. Let me deal with football first. You've got owners, most of whom are worth close to $1 billion. You've got players who are making millions of dollars. My working assumption at a time when people are having to cut back, compromise.
All right, just to remind you what you're watching here, while the President talks about football, American football, that is, for a moment or two, a press briefing between two presidents at the White House, the President of the United States of America, President Obama, alongside Felipe Calderon, the President of Mexico. Speaking there to the press, the journalist you saw just a moment ago asked the question about Libya. What we want to hear, most of us anyway, is the answer, the President's answer on Libya, but he asked a three-pronged question there. Part two was about stalemate, a union dispute, a labor dispute in American football, and the President's chosen to answer that one first. He also was asking a question of Felipe Calderon. Here's the answer on Libya.
With respect to Libya, I think you asked about, sort of, do I have a doctrine? My approach throughout the convulsions that have swept through the Middle East is, number one, no violence against citizens. Number two, that we stand for freedom and democracy. And in the situation in Libya, what you've seen is, number one, violence against citizens, and the active urging of violence against unarmed citizens by Gaddafi. And number two, you have seen with great clarity that he has lost legitimacy with his people. And so let me just be very unambiguous about this. Colonel Gaddafi needs to step down from power and leave. That is good for his country. It is good for his people. It's the right thing to do. Those around him have to understand that violence that they perpetrate against innocent civilians will be monitored and they will be held accountable for it. And so to the extent that they are making calculations in their own minds about which way history is moving, they should know history is moving against Colonel Gaddafi, and that their support for him and their willingness to carry out orders that are direct violence against citizens is something that ultimately they will be held accountable for. With respect to our willingness to engage militarily, what I've instructed the Department of Defense, as well as our State Department and all those who are involved in international affairs to examine is a full range of options. I don't want us hamstrung. I want us to be making our decisions based on what's going to be best for the Libyan people in consultation with the international community. And we are doing that not just here in the United States within our own agencies, but we're also doing it in consultation with NATO. We have already engineered the most rapid and forceful set of sanctions that have ever been applied internationally. We started unilaterally, freezing $30 billion worth of assets, imposing severe sanctions against those in the Libyan government who've been carrying out some of these crimes. And as a consequence of that leadership, what we've seen is, I think, broad-based mobilization around the international community. You are right that there is a danger of a stalemate that over time could be bloody. And that is something that we're obviously considering. So what I want to make sure of is that the United States has full capacity to act potentially rapidly if the situation deteriorated in such a way that you had a humanitarian crisis on our hands, or a situation in which civilians were, defenseless civilians were finding themselves trapped and in great danger. I think it's very important for us to do this in consultation, though, with the international community. One of the extraordinary successes of Egypt was the full ownership that the Egyptian people felt for that transformation. That has served the Egyptian people well. It serves U.S. interests well. We did not see anti-American sentiment arising out of that movement in Egypt precisely because they felt that we hadn't tried to engineer or impose a particular outcome, but rather they owned it. The same is happening in Tunisia, and I think that the region will be watching carefully to make sure we're on the right side of history, but also that we are doing